If you present a cloud architecture to executives like an engineer would, you're going to lose the room. Not because your architecture is bad, not because your diagrams are wrong, not because your technical skills are weak. You will lose the room because the executives aren't there to learn about cloud architecture. The executives that you're meeting with are there to determine whether they should fund your architecture and provide the executive support necessary to make it happen. And if you can't explain your architecture in terms of business, your architecture won't move forward. That means it won't be funded. There'll be no change to the business. And all your architecture will be is a document sitting in a repository that no one will ever see again. So today I'm going to show you how a cloud architect should present a cloud architecture to the executives. And here's the big question. How do you present a technical architecture to people who do not care at all about technology? And that's the executive team. And the answer is quite simple. You don't present the technology. You present the business decision. Here's the big mistake so many make. A lot of new architects think that presenting a cloud architecture means walking the executives through a technical diagram. And they will start with the VPCs, the subnets, the IAM rows, the Kubernetes clusters, the firewalls. You get it. All kinds of technical stuff. But here's the thing. While these things matter, and while technical skills are very necessary, and while cloud knowledge matters too, and security matters, and it all matters, that's not what the executives care about. And that's not how you present to the executives. Now, that's a great way to present to engineers. And that's why so many engineers struggle when they try to become architects, because they're used to engineering thinking. Because engineers will explain what they built. And that's great, because that's their job, is to build things. But architects need to be able to explain what the organization should do, why it matters, what trade-offs exist, and what business outcomes the decision will create. See, engineers build, but architects decide. Engineers deploy, but architects align business goals with technology solutions. Engineers configure, but architects influence. And when you're standing in front of a group of executives, you're not being evaluated for the technical things that you actually know. You're being evaluated on whether or not you can make that company better from a business perspective. And that's a critical mindset shift for new people becoming architects. A cloud architecture presentation to the executives is not a technical presentation. It is a business case of what's in it for you to invest in this architecture. And if you miss that one critical point, it doesn't matter how good your architecture is, the company will never fund it and it will never be approved. So let's talk about what executives actually care about and what they will listen to. Executives care about business outcomes. They care about revenue. They care about risk. They care about what it's going to cost them. They care about delivery speed. They care about the customer experience and the regulatory environment. But they do not wake up in the morning and say, oh, Kubernetes is interesting to me. They do not wake up and say, this cloud service is interesting. The executive team is asking a bigger question. Can this architecture help us grow our revenue? Can this architecture reduce business risks? Will this architecture improve our operational efficiency? Can this architecture help us launch new products and services faster? Will this architecture improve the customer experience in a manner that will get them to spend more, for example? Will this architecture keep us compliant? And that's executive relevance. And if you want to be seen as a real cloud architect, you must learn to speak in executive language. Not because the technology is unimportant. It's very important. But the technology won't get itself funded. The business outcome will be the source of funding for your architecture. So let's talk about a real executive presentation, because when you present your cloud architecture to executives, you're usually trying to accomplish one of three things. The first thing we typically look for is to get our architecture funded. Without funding, nothing happens. The architecture does not get built. Whatever migration we planned does not happen. Whatever modernization we wanted stalls. Whatever security improvements get lost. So if the executives won't fund it, nothing actually happens. Now, the second goal that we typically have as architects when we present to the client's executives is we're looking to get people resources. See, an architecture will fail when an organization will approve the idea but not provide the teams necessary, the right skills, and the right executive support for the rest of the people to actually build and implement the architecture. So you're trying to get that support in terms of people resources. Now, third, when we architects meet with executives, we're trying to get executive buy-in. And this may actually be the most critical factor because even with money and people, any type of digital transformation effort will fail when leaders are not aligned. The executives must agree on the priorities of the architecture. The executives must accept the trade-offs. They must accept and support whatever governance structure you design. And the executive must be there to help you resolve conflict when they inevitably will occur inside of an organization where multiple people have sets of competing interests. So that's what you need to be able to do. And this is where the average engineer and the average cloud architect or the good cloud architect separate themselves very quickly because they're so different. And here's the surprising truth for many. The more senior the audience, the less technical your presentation could be or should be. And that's where most people think the opposite if they're not used to an architecture background. They think, I'm presenting to executives, I need to prove how smart I am with technology. But no, that's exactly the worst thing you could do. You don't build executive trust by overwhelming them with technical detail that they don't care about. You build executive trust by translating technical complexity into business clarity. And that's what we architects are paid to do. Architects are not paid for deployments. Engineers do that. Architects are paid for decisions. We are paid to understand the business goal, evaluate all of the technical options that exist, assess the various risks of the various approaches, understand the actual costs involved, manage the trade-offs, and then ultimately recommend the best path forward. And that's why things like an AWS certification are never enough, because they may help you understand a service in an AWS certification, or an Azure certification may help you understand the platform's capabilities. But a certification will not teach you how to stand in front of executives and make a business case to get your architecture funded. A certification will not teach you how to explain business risk. It will not teach you how to manage competing stakeholder priorities. It will not teach you how to say to executives, here's the trade-offs, here's the recommendation, here's the investment required, and here's the business outcome you should expect, which is architect-level communication. And that's what it takes to get you trusted to executives. So how would you structure your presentation, assuming you have the business acumen, the executive skills, and all the other skills necessary to deliver this presentation? Here's how you should structure the presentation. A great executive architecture presentation should follow a fairly simple flow. And if you really want to learn more about this flow, I recommend the book Presenting to Win from Jerry Weissman. He kind of mastered this flow for many architects and many technical sales reps on how to present to executives a technology solution. And the idea is not a deep dump of technical information. The idea is to move your audience from where they're at now to the decision you need to take them to. So your presentation needs flow. And here's typically the flow that I recommend. Start with the business problem as step one. Don't start with a diagram. Don't start with a cloud provider. Don't start with cloud services. Start with the business problem. For example, our current platform cannot support growth targets for the next 24 months. Or our current infrastructure creates unacceptable downtime risk for a revenue generating application. Or our current environment is too expensive, too slow to change, and too difficult to secure. Because that's going to get executives' attention. Now, why is that? Because you're not talking about technology, which they don't talk about. You're talking about business pain, which they do care about. So executives need some sense of urgency. Do we need to do this now? Because if there's no urgency, there's no action, because there's many competing priorities for the executives to think about. So you must be able to explain why this decision matters now. For example, if we don't modernize this platform, we risk delaying 3 revenue-generating product launches this year. Or If we do not improve resilience, one major outage could create significant customer churn, lost revenue, and a significant reputational damage. Or, if we do not create a governed cloud platform, cloud spend will continue to grow without accountability. And this is where you create the business case for action. Not fear, not drama, but actual business reality. Because executives do not fund architecture because it's cool or interesting. They fund an architecture because the cost of doing nothing is just too high. So the next thing I want you to do is to present the target business outcome. Now I'll explain what your architecture is designed to achieve. Not technically, but from a business first perspective. For example, this cloud architecture is designed to reduce platform downtime by 60%. Or this architecture is designed to lower infrastructure operating costs by 25% over the next 18 months. Or this architecture is designed to increase release velocity from quarterly deployments to weekly deployments. Notice the language. Not we are using this service, not we are deploying this tool, not we are configuring this platform. This is the language of business outcomes and business outcomes and business outcomes. And that's what executives care about. So the next step is to show what the architecture means to the actual business. So show your architecture, but do not give a walkthrough of every component. Use the architecture to support whatever decision you need the client to actually make. For example, you might say something like, to achieve this outcome, we are recommending a multi-account cloud landing zone, centralized identity, standardized network segmentation, automated security controls, and cost governance. And then explain what each of those capabilities does in a business term. For example, the landing zone will create cost control and consistency. The centralized identity will reduce access risk. Network segmentation will limit blast radius. Automated security controls will reduce manual errors, but something that is actually business related. Because that's how architects communicate. We connect the technical design to some form of business value. Now, the next thing I want you to do in your presentation is to explain the actual options. The executives need to know that you evaluated the alternatives. Don't make it look like you fell in love with one thing and you moved forward with it. Architects must show decision making. For example, we evaluated 3 options. Option 1 is to keep the current environment and optimize it. This is going to be the lowest short-term cost, but it does not solve our scalability issues or our resilience issues. Option 2 is a limited cloud migration. This reduces some operational burden, but does not address long-term modernization. Option 3 is a governed cloud architecture with modernization patterns. This requires more investment, but it gives us better scalability, better security, faster delivery, and lower long-term risk, because that is architecture thinking. You're talking about options, you're talking about trade-offs, and of course you're there to provide a recommendation. And that's the difference between sounding like a technician and sounding like a trusted advisor, which the architect must be. So explain the trade-offs. Every architecture, whether it be a business architecture, a data architecture, a cloud architecture, security architecture, technology architecture, has trade-offs. And if you do not explain the trade-offs to the executives, they're not going to trust you because they know that every decision comes with a cost. So tell them the truth. For example, this architecture improves resilience, but it requires additional upfront investments. Or this design increases governance, but teams will still need to follow a standardized pattern. Or this platform reduces long-term cost, but we will still need skilled cloud operations and FinOps support. And that's going to be executive communication. You're not pretending the architecture is perfect, because there's no such thing as a perfect architecture. You're showing that you understand reality and you're building trust every step of the way. The next step, make the recommendation. At this point, don't just present options. Executives expect you to make a recommendation, and that's going to be critical, especially because we cloud architects, enterprise architects, security architects, AI architects, we're paid for decisions, not implementation. So say my recommendation is option 3, and then explain why. I recommended option 3 because it best supports the business growth plan, reduces operational risk, strengthens security and governance, and creates a scalable foundation for future initiatives. That's clear. It's executive level, and that is what decision makers need to hear. The next step is to ask for the decision. And this is where many technical people struggle. They present great information, but they don't ask for the actual decision. So, if you need funding, ask for it. If you need people, ask for people. If you need executive support, ask for executive support. Because that is architecture. We need to get our architecture supported. Let's talk about why this matters so much for your career. If you want to become a cloud architect, an enterprise architect, or any architect, you must understand this. You're not trying to prove that you know cloud services or any other technology services. You are there to prove that you can make the right decisions that will create business value. You must know the technology, but technical knowledge alone is not enough. Business acumen matters, executive communication matters, leadership matters, stakeholder management skills matters, governance matters, decision-making capabilities matters. And that's why there's so many certified people that are still struggling to get great architect jobs, because they can explain the services, they can pass the certification exam, they can do labs, but they walk into an interview and they sound like engineers. They talk about tools, they talk about configurations, they talk about deployments. But an architecture interview is a lot like an architecture executive presentation. And in that architecture interview, what the hiring manager is asking is, can this person advise the business? Can this person advise executives? Can this person manage stakeholders? Can this person make decisions or explain trade-offs? And can this person connect your cloud architecture, your enterprise architecture, or whatever architecture it is to a business outcome? So that's why when you think about any architecture, communication skills become so important. Because we're not talking about basic communication in an architecture presentation to executives, or an interview for that matter. We are talking about executive communication, which is architect communication, which is business communication. And that's exactly what we teach at Go Cloud Careers. If you'd like to become a cloud architect, enterprise architect, security architect, or AI architect, we have 2 free weekly architecture career webinars each week. On these free webinars, we'll talk about what we do as architects, the exact set of skills that you need to be hired as an architect, what hiring managers want in an architect that they hire, the things that belong in your portfolio, for example, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and we'll even give you some interview tips on these free architecture webinars. You can register for these free architecture webinars by clicking the link in the description of this video. These free architecture webinars are live on Zoom, so you can ask any question you want of me live, and we'll do anything we can to help you build your architecture career. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to help you build your architecture career. This is Mike Gibbs signing off for now, and I hope to see you in another video or a free live Zoom webinar. Take care, everyone.